Hi guys, today I am going to read the book on this blog. It's called Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. It's a famous book, I think you know about it. I'm going to read some of the pages today, like for 1 hour. So let's go. Rich Dad Poor Dad is a starting point for anyone looking to gain control of their financial future. It is said by USA Today. USA Today, it has been recognized by lot of peoples. I personally want to read this book, so I bought it. Love this book. Love the review of the books. Let's see in the contents which contents we want to go inside about. Mm, there is the rich don't work for money. Definitely they don't. I am an entrepreneur myself, so I like to invest my money and my I like my money to work for me rather than me working for money. That is how entrepreneurial mind thinks. So the rich don't work for money. Lesson 1. The poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. Dad, this is a story that I'm going to go about. Dad, can you tell me how to get rich? My dad put down the evening paper. Why do you want to get rich, son? Because today Jimmy's mom drove up in their new Cadillac and they were going to their beach house for the weekend. He took three of his friends, but Mike and I were not invited. They told us we weren't invited because we were poor kids. Uh, there is something here that I don't like, that some people get recognized as poor and do not get invited in certain ceremonies. This is what shows that the rich people's arrogance, and this is the thing which brings them down in their lives, which is really bad for them and bad for the wealth. Because I believe that whatever we get in our life is whatever we attract to our life. So if we being rich and being arrogant does not go um, in same way. So if you cannot be arrogant and rich at the same time, if you do so, your wealth and rich fullness will go away from your life, certainly. They did? My dad asked incredulously. Yeah, they did, I replied in a hurt tone. My dad silently shook his head, pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose, and went back to reading the paper. I stood waiting for an answer. The year was 1956. I was 9 years old. By some twist of fate, I attended the same public school where the rich people sent their kids. We were primarily a sugar plantation town. The managers of the plantation and the other affluent people such as doctors, business owners, and bankers, sent their children to this elementary school after grade 6. Their children were generally sent off to private schools because my family lived on side of the street. I went to the school. Had I lived on the other side of the street, I would have gone to a different school. The kids from families more like mine after grade 6, these kids and I would go on to the public intermediate and high school. There was no private school for them. My dad finally put down the paper. I would tell he was thinking. I could tell he was thinking. Well, son, he began slowly. If you want to be rich, you have to learn to make money. How do I make money? I asked. Well, you use your head, son, he said, smiling. Even then, I knew that really meant that's all I going to tell you. Or I don't know the answer, so don't embarrass me. A partnership is formed. The next morning, I told my best friend Mike what my dad had said, as best as I could tell. Mike and I were the only poor kids in the school. Mike was also in the school by a twist of fate. Someone had drawn a jog in the line for the school district, and we wound up in school with the rich kids. We weren't really poor, but we felt as if we were because all the other boys had new baseball gloves, new bicycles, new everything. Mom and dad provided us with the basics like food, shelter, and clothes, but that was about it. My dad used to say, if you want something, work for it. We wanted things, but there was not much work available for 9-year-old boys. So, what we do to make money? Mike asked. I don't know, I said, but do you want to be my partner? He agreed, and so on. That Saturday morning, Mike became my first business partner. We spent all morning coming up with ideas on how to make money. Occasionally, we talked about all the cool guys at Jimmy's beach house having fun. It hurt a little, but that hurt was good because it inspired us to keep thinking of a way to make money. Finally, that afternoon, a bolt of lightning struck. It was an idea Mike got from a science book he had read. Excitedly, we shook hands, and the partnership now had a business. For the next several weeks, Mike and I ran around our neighborhood knocking on doors and asking our neighbors if they would save their toothpaste tubes for us. What? With puzzled looks, most adults consented with a smile. Some asked us what we were doing, to which we replied, we can't tell you, it's a business secret. My mom grew distressed as the wore on. We had selected a site next to her washing machine as the place we would stockpile our raw materials in a brown cardboard box that at one time held cat's catsup bottle or little pile of used toothpaste tubes began to grow. Finally, my mom put her foot down. The sight of her neighbor's messy, crumpled with used toothpaste tubes had gotten her. "What are you boys doing?" she asked. "And I don't want to hear again that it's a business secret. Do something with this mess, or I am going to throw it out." Mike and I pledged and begged, explaining that we would soon have enough and then we would begin production. We informed her that we were waiting on a couple of neighbors to finish their toothpaste so we could have their tubes. Mom granted us a 1 week extension. The date to begin production was moved up and the pressure was on. My, my first partnership was already being threatened with an eviction notice by my own mom. It became Mike's job to tell the neighbors to quickly use up their toothpaste, saying their dentist wanted them to brush more often anyway. I began to put together the production line. One day, my dad drove up with a friend to see two 9-year-old boys in the driveway with a production line operating at full speed. There was fine white powder everywhere. On a long table were small milk cartons from school, and our family's hibachi grills was glowing with red hot coals at maximum heat. Most of the time, what happens? Entrepreneurs come up with small ideas and they implement upon it, and at first people do not understand it and they question it that whatever you are doing is not going to work. And whenever that thing works and they goes on to become successful, and those are the peoples, those are the exact peoples comes along and says that, "Hey, I always knew that you had it in you. Hey, you I always knew you could do it. Here you are, you did it." Yeah, blah blah blah. That is how happens. So where I was, one day my dad drove up with a friend to see two 9-year-old boys in the driveway with the production line operating at full speed. There was fine white powder everywhere. On a long table were small milk cartons from school, and our family's hibachi grill was glowing with red hot coals at maximum heat. Dad walked up cautiously, having to park the car at the base of the driveway since the production line blocked the carport. As he and his friend got closer, they saw a steel pot sitting on top of the coals in which the toothpaste tubes were being melted down. In those days, toothpaste did not come in plastic tubes. The tubes were made of lead. So, Sisha, it's called in Bengali. So once the paint was burned off, the tube were dropped in the small steel pot. They melted until they became liquid, and with my mom's pot holder, we poured the lead through a small hole in the top of the milk cartons. The milk cartons were filled with plaster of Paris. White powder was everywhere. In my haste, I had knocked the bag over, and the entire area looked like it had been hit by a snowstorm. The milk cartons were the uh, outer containers for plaster of Paris molds. My dad and his friend watched as we carefully poured the molten lead through a small hole in the top of plaster of Paris cube. Careful, my dad says. I nodded without look, looking up. Finally, once the pouring was through, I put the steel pot down and smiled at my dad. What are you boys doing? He asked with a cautious smile. We are doing what you told me to do. We are going to be rich, I said. Yup, said Mike, grinning and nodding his head. We are partners. And what is in those plaster molds? My dad asked. Watch, I said. I should be a good. This should be a good batch. With a small hammer, I tapped at the seal that divided the cube in half. Cautiously, I pulled up the top half of the plaster mold, and a lead nickel fell out. I'm 17 minutes into the video uh, of 1 hour video. So, oh no, my dad exclaimed, "You are casting nickels out of lead?" That's right. That's right. Uh, Mike said, "We are doing as you told us to do. We are making money." What? Ridiculous. My dad's friend turned and burst into laughter. My dad smiled and shook his head. Along with a fire and a box of spent toothpaste tubes, in front of him stood two little boys, covered with white dust, smiling from ear to ear. He asked us to put everything down and sit with him on the front step of our house with a smile. He gently explained what the word counterfeiting meant. Our dreams were dashed. You mean this is illegal? And asked Mike in a quivering voice. Let them go. My dad's friend said they might be developing a natural talent. My dad glared at him. Yes, it is illegal, my dad said gently. But you boys have shown great creativity and original thought. Keep going. I am really proud of you. Disappointed Mike and I sat in silence for about 20 minutes before we began cleaning up our mess. The business was over on opening day. Sweeping the powder up, I looked at Mike and said, I guess Jimmy and his friends were right. We are poor. My father was just living as I said. Boys, he said, you are only poor if you give up. The most important thing is that you did something. Most people only talk and dream of getting rich. You have done something. I'm very proud of the two of you. I will say it again. Keep going. Don't quit. Mike said, and I stood there in silence. They were nice words, but we still did not know what to do. So how come you are not rich? That I asked because I chose to be school teacher. School teachers really don't think about being rich. We just like to teach. I wish I could help you, but I really don't know how to make money. Mike and I turned and continued our cleanup. I know, said my dad. If you boys want to learn how to be rich, don't ask me. talk to your dad, Mike. My dad asked Mike with a scrunched up face. Yeah, your dad, repeated my dad with a smile. Your dad and I have the same banker, and he raves about your father. He's told me several times that your father is brilliant when it comes to making money. My dad, my dad? Mike asked again in disbelief. 1 minute break. So, something about great. Nice car. Mike asked again in disbelief. Then how come we don't have a nice car and a nice house like the rich kids at school? Then how come we don't have a nice car and nice house like rich kids at school? A nice car and a nice house don't necessarily mean you are rich or you know how to make money. My dad replied, Jimmy's dad works for the sugar plantation. He's he's not much different from me. He works for a company and I work for the government. The company buys the car for him. The sugar company is in financial trouble and Jimmy's dad may soon have nothing. Your dad is different, Mike. He seems to be he seems to be building an empire, and I suspect in a few years he will be a very rich man. With that, Mike and I got excited again. With new vigor, we began cleaning up the mess caused by our now defunct first business. As we were cleaning, we made plans for how and when to talk to Mike's dad. The problem was that Mike's dad worked long hours and often did not come home until late. His father owned warehouses, a construction company, a chain of stores, and three restaurants. It was the restaurants that kept him out late. Mike caught the bus home after we had finished cleaning up. He was going to talk to his dad when he got home that night and asked him if he would teach us how to become rich. Mike promised to call as soon as he had talked to his dad, even if it was late. The phone rang at 8:30 p.m. Okay, I said. Next Saturday, I put the phone down. Mike's dad had agreed to meet with us. On Saturday, I caught the 7:30 a.m. bus to the poor side to uptown. The lessons began. Mike and I met with his dad that morning at 8 o'clock. He was already busy, having been at work having been at work for more than an hour. His construction supervisor was just leaving in his pickup truck. As I walked up to his simple, small, and tidy home, Mike met me at the door. Dad's on the phone, and he said to wait on the back porch. Mike said as he opened the door. The old wooden floor creaked as I stepped across the threshold of the aging house. There was a cheap mat just inside the door. The mat was there to hide the years of wear from countless footsteps that the floor had supported. Although clean, it needed to be replaced. I felt claustrophobic as I entered the narrow living room that was filled with old, musty, overstuffed furniture that today would be collector's items. Sitting on the mom, Sitting on the couch were two women, both a little older than my mom. Across from the woman sat a man in workman's clothes. He wore khaki slacks and a khaki shirt, neatly pressed but without starch and polished work boots. He was about 10 years older than my dad. They smiled as Mike and I walked past them toward the back porch. I smiled back shyly. Who are those people? I asked. Who are those people? Oh, they work for my dad. The older man runs his warehouses, and the women are the managers of the restaurants. And as you arrived, you saw the construction supervisor who is working on a road project about 50 miles from here. His other supervisor, who is building a track of houses, left before you got there. Does this go on all the time? I asked. Not always, but quite often, said Mike, smiling as he pulled up a chair to sit down next to me. I asked my dad if he would teach us to make money. Mike said, "Oh, what did he say to that?" I asked with cautious curiosity. Well, he had a funny look on his face at first, and then he said he would make us an offer. Oh, I said, rocking my chair back. Oh, I said, rocking my chair back against the wall. Sat there perched on two rear legs of the chair. Mike did the same thing. Do you know what the offer is? I asked. No, but we will soon find out. Suddenly, Mike's dad burst through the rickety screen door and onto the porch. Mike and I jumped to our feet, not out of respect, but because we were startled. Ready, boys? He asked. As he pulled up a chair to sit down with us, he nodded our heads as we pulled our chairs away from the wall to sit in front of him. He was a big man, about 6 feet tall, and 200 pounds. My dad was taller, about the same weight, and 5 years older than Mike's dad. They sort of looked alike, though not of the same ethnic makeup. Maybe their energy was similar. Mike says you want to learn to make money. Is that correct, Robert? I nodded my head quickly, but with a little trepidation. He had a lot of power behind his words and smile. Okay, here is my offer. I will teach you, but I won't do it classroom style. You work for me. I will teach you. You don't work for me, I won't teach you. I can teach you faster if you work. And I am wasting my time if you just want to sit and listen like you do in school. That's my offer. Take it or leave it. Ah, may I ask a question first? I asked. No, take it or leave it. I have got too much I have got too much work to do to waste my time. If you can't make up your mind decisively, then you will never learn to make money anyway. Opportunities come and go. Being when my make able to know when to make quick decisions is an important skill. You have the opportunity that you asked for. School is beginning or it's over in 10 seconds. Mike's dad said with a teasing smile. Take it, I said. Take it, said Mike. Good, said Mike's dad. Mrs. Martin will be by in 10 minutes. After I am through with her, you will ride with her to my superetti and you can begin working. I will pay you 10 cents per hour. What? And you will work 3 hours every Saturday. That means 30 cents, 40 cents per month. But I have a softball game today, I said. Mike's dad lowered his voice to a stern tone. Take it or leave it, he said. Take it. I will take it, I replied, choosing to work and learn instead of playing. 30 cents later, that means 3 weeks later. By 9 a.m. that day, Mike and I were working for Mrs. Martin. She was a kind and patient woman. Patient woman. She always said that Mike and I reminded her of her two grown sons. Although kind, she believed in her hard work and kept us moving. We spent 3 hours take, taking canned goods off the shelves, brushing each can with a feather duster to get to to get the dust uh, off, and then restacking in them neatly. It was excruciatingly boring work. Mike's dad, whom I call my rich dad, owned 9 of these little superities each with a large park, large parking lot. They were the early version of the 7-Eleven convenience stores, little neighborhood grocery stores where people bought items such as milk, bread, butter, and cigarettes. The problem was that this was Hawaii before air conditioning was widely used, and the stores could not close their doors because of the heat. On two sides of the store, the doors had to be wide open to the road and parking lot. Every time a car drove by or pulled into the parking lot, dust would swirl and settle in the store. We knew he had a job as long as there was no air conditioning. For 3 weeks, Mike and I reported to Mrs. Martin and worked our 3 hours. By noon, our work was over, and she dropped three little dimes in each of our hands. Now, even at the age of 9 in the mid 1950s, 30 cents was not too exciting. Comic books cost 10 cents back then, so I usually spent my money on comic books and went home. By Wednesday of the fourth week, I was ready to quit. I have agreed to work only because I wanted to learn to make money from my dad, and now I was a slave for 10 cents an hour. On top of that, I had not seen my dad since the first Saturday. I'm quitting, I told Mike at lunchtime. School was boring, and now I did not even have my Saturdays to look forward to. But it was the 30 cents that really got to me. This time Mike smiled. What are you laughing at? I asked with anger and frustration. Dad said this would happen. He said to meet with him when you were ready to quit. What? I said indigent, indigant, indignantly, indignantly. He, he's been waiting for me to get fed up. Shut up, Mike said. That's kind of different. He doesn't teach like your dad. Your mom and dad lecture a lot. My dad is quiet mm, and a man of short words. You just wait till this Saturday. I will tell him you are ready. You mean I have been set up? No, not really, but maybe. Dad will explain on Saturday. Waiting in line on Saturday. I was ready to face my dad. Even my real dad was angry with him. My real dad, the one I call the poor one, thought that my rich dad was violating child labor laws and should be investigated. My educated my educated poor dad told me to demand what I deserved, at least 25 cents an hour. Yep, that's true. My poor dad told me that if I did not get a raise, I was to quit immediately. You don't need that damned job anyway, said my poor dad with indignation. At 8 o'clock Saturday morning, I walked through the door of Mike's house when Mike's dad opened it. Take a seat and wait in line, he said as I entered. He turned and disappeared into his little office next to a bedroom. I looked around the room and didn't see Mike's anywhere. Feeling awkward, I cautiously sat down next to the same two women who were three who were there 4 weeks. The 4 weeks earlier, they smiled and slid down the couch to make room for me. 45 minutes went by, and I was steaming. The two women had met with him and left 30 minutes earlier. An old gentleman was in there for 20 minutes and was also gone. The house was empty, and here I sat in a musty, dark living room on a beautiful sunny Hawaiian day, waiting to talk to a cheap stock who exploited children. I could hear him rustling around the house, talking on the phone and ignoring me. I was ready to walk out, but for some reason I stayed. Finally, 15 minutes later, at exactly 9 o'clock, Rich Dad walked out of his office, said nothing, and signaled with his hand for me to enter. I understand you want a raise, or you are going to quit, Rich Dad said as he swiveled in his office chair. Well, you are not keeping your end of the bargain, I blurted out, nearly in tears. It was really frightening for me to confront a grow up. You said that you would teach me if I worked for you. Well, I have worked for you, I have worked hard. I have given up my baseball games to work for you, but you haven't kept your word. And you haven't taught me anything. You are a crook like everyone in town thinks you are. You are greedy. You want all the money and don't take care of your employees. You made me wait and don't show me any respect. I am only a little boy, but I deserve to be treated better. Rich Dad rocked back in his swivel chair, hands up to his chin, and stared at me. Not bad, he said. In less than a month, you sound like most of my employees. What? I asked, not understanding what he was saying. I continued with my grievance. I thought you were going to keep your end of the bargain and teach me. Instead, you want to torture me? That's cruel. That's really cruel. I'm teaching you, Rich Dad said quietly. What have you taught me? Nothing, I said angrily. You haven't even talked to me once since I agreed to work for peanuts. 10 cents an hour? Huh, I should notify the government about you. We have child labor laws. You know, my dad works for the government. Whoa, said Rich Dad. Now you sound just like most of the people who used to work for me. People I have either fired or who have quit. So, what do you have to say? I demanded, feeling pretty brave for a little kid. You lied to me. I have worked for you and you have not kept your word. You have not taught me anything. How do you know that I have not taught you anything? Asked Rich Dad calmly. Well, you have never talked to me. I worked for 3 weeks and you have not taught me anything, I said with a pout. Does teaching mean talking or a lecture? Rich Dad asked. Well, yes, I replied. That's how they teach in school, he said, smiling. But that is not how life teaches you, and I would say that life is the best teacher of all. Most of the time, life does not talk to you. It just sort of pushes you around. Each push is life saying, "Wake up! There is something I want you to learn." What is this? What is this man talking about? I asked myself silently. Life pushing me around, was life talking to me? No, I knew. Now I knew I had to quit my job. I was talking to someone who needed to be locked up. If you learn life's lesson, you will do well. If not, life will just continue push you around. People do two things. Some just let life push them around. Others get angry and push back. But they push back against their boss or their job or their husband or wife. They do not know it's life that's pushing. I had no idea what he was talking about. Life pushes all us around. Some people give up and others fight. A few learn the lesson and move on. They welcome life pushing them around. To these few people, it means they need and want to learn something. They learn and move on. Most quit, refuse like you fight. Rich Dad stood and shut the creaky old wooden window and needed repair. If you learn this lesson, you will grow into a wise, wealthy, and happy young man. If you don't, you will spend your life blaming a job, low pay, or your boss for your problems. You will live life always hoping for that big break that will solve all your money problems. Rich Dad looked over at me to see if I was still listening. His eyes met mine. We stared at each other, communicating through our eyes. Finally, I looked away. Once I had absorbed his message, I knew he was right. I was blaming him, and I did ask to learn. I was fighting. Rich Dad continued, or if you are the kind of person who has no guts, you just give up every time life pushes you. If you are that kind of person, you live all your life playing it safe, doing the right things, saving yourself for some event that never happens. Then you die a boring old man. You'll have a lot of friends who really like you because you are such a nice hardworking guy. But the truth is that you let life push you into submission. Deep down, you were terrified of taking risks. You really wanted to win, but the fear of losing was greater than the excitement of winning. Deep inside, you and only you will all know you didn't go for it. You chose to play it safe. Our eyes met again. You have been pushing me around? I asked. Some people might say that, smile raised that. I would say that I just gave you a taste of life. What taste of life? I asked, still angry, but now curious and ready to learn. You boys are the first people who have ever asked me to teach them how to make money. I have more than 150 employees, and not one of them has asked me what I know about money. They asked me for a job and a paycheck, but never to teach them about money. So most will spend the best years of their lives working for money, not really understanding what it is they are working for. I sat there listening intently. So when Mike told me you wanted to learn how to make money, I decided to design a course that mirrored real life. I would talk until I was blue in the face, but you wouldn't hear a thing. So I decided to let life push you around a bit so you could hear me. That's why I only paid you 10 cents. So, what is the lesson I learned from working for only 10 cents an hour? I asked. That's your that's your that you are cheap and exploit your that you are I asked that you are cheap and exploit your workers. Rich Dad rocked back and laughed heartily. Finally, he said, "You'd best, you'd best change your point of view. Stop blaming me and thinking I am the problem. If you think I am the problem, do then you have to change me. If you realize that you are the problem, then you can change yourself, learn something, and grow wiser." Most people want everyone else in the world to change, but themselves. Let me tell you, it's easier to change yourself than everyone else. Oh my god, what a message that was. Let me let me read that again loud and listen. Rich Dad rocked back and laughed heartily. Finally he said, "You'd best change your point of view. Stop blaming me and thinking I am the problem. If you think I am the problem, then you have to change me. If you realize that you are the problem, then you can change yourself, learn something, and grow wiser." Most people want everyone else in the world to change but themselves. Let me tell you, it's wiser to change yourself than everyone else. "I don't understand," I said. "Don't blame me for your problems," Rich Dad said, growing impatience. "But you only paying me 10 cents. So what are you saying? What are you learning? What are you learning?" This dad asked, smiling. "That you are cheap," I said with a sly grin. "See, you think I'm the problem," said Rich Dad, but you are. "Well, keep that attitude and you will learn nothing. Keep the attitude that I am the problem. What choices do you have? What choices do you have?" "Well, if you don't pay me more or show me more respect and teach me, I'll quit." "Well put," Rizdat said, and that's exactly what most people do. They quit and go looking for another job, a better opportunity, and higher pay, actually thinking that this will solve the problem. In most cases, it won't. "So, what should I do?" I asked. "Just take the measly 10 cents an hour and smile." Rich Dad smiled. "That's what the other people do. But that's all they do, waiting for a raise, thinking that more money will solve their problem. Most just accept it and make some take a second job working harder, but again, accepting a small paycheck." I sat staring at the floor, beginning to understand the lesson Rich Dad was presenting. I could sense it was a test of life. Finally, I looked up and asked, "So, what will solve the problem?" "This," he said, leaning forward in his chair and tapping me gently on the head. "This stuff between your ears. This stuff between your ears." It was At the moment that rich dad shared the pivotal point of view that separated him from his employees and my poor dad. Him from his employees and my poor dad, and led him to eventually become one of the richest men in Hawaii, while my highly educated but poor dad struggled financially all his life. Singular point it was a singular point of view that made all the difference over a lifetime. Rich dad explained this point of view over and over, which which I call lesson number one. The poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. On that brightest Saturday morning, I learned a completely different point of view from what I had been taught by my poor dad at the age of 9. I understood that both dads wanted me to learn, both dads encouraged me to study, but not the same things. My highly educated dad recommended that I do what he said. Son, I want you to study hard, get good grades, so you can find a safe, secure job with a big company, and make sure to ensure it has excellent benefits. My rich dad wanted me to learn how money works so I could make it work for me. These lessons I would learn through life with his guidance, not because of a classroom. My rich dad continued my first lesson. I am glad you got angry, but about working for 10 cents an hour. If you hadn't got angry and had simply accepted it, if I would have to tell you that I could not teach you. You see, true learning takes energy, passion, and a burning desire. Anger is a big part of that formula, for passion is anger and love combined. When it comes to money, most people want to play it safe and feel secure. So passion does not direct them, fear does. So is that why they'll take jobs with low pay? I asked. Yes, said Rich Dad. Some people say I exploit people because I don't pay as much as the sugar plantation or the government. I say the people exploit themselves. Is their is their fear, not mine. But don't you feel you should pay them more? I asked. I don't have to. And besides, more money will not solve their problems. Just look at your dad. He makes a lot of money. He still can't pay my he still can't pay my bills. Most people given more money only get into more debt. So that's why the 10 cents an hour, I said, smiling. It's a part of the lesson. That's right, smiled Rich Dad. You see, your dad went to school and got an excellent education, so he could get a high paying job, but he still has money problems because he never learned anything about money in school. On top of that, he believes in working for money, and you don't. I, and you don't? I asked. No, not really, said Rich Dad. If you want to learn to work for money, then stay in school. That is a great place to learn to do that. But if you want to learn how to have money work for you, then I will teach you that, but only if you want to learn. Wouldn't everyone want to learn that? I asked. No, said Rich Dad. Simply because it's easier to learn to work for money, especially if fear is your primary emotion. When the subject of money is discussed, I don't understand, I said with a frown. Don't worry about that for now. Just know that it's fear that keeps most people working at a job. The fear of not paying their bills, the fear of being fired, the fear of not having enough money, and the fear of starting over. That's the price of starting to learn a profession or trade. It, and then working for money. Most people become a slave to money and then get angry at their boss. Learning to have learning to have money for work for you is a completely different course of study. I asked. Course of study? Absolutely, is that answer? Absolutely. Okay, we'll read it again for another reading vlog video. I am putting it at end right here. So bye bye. Bye bye.